Our final keynote today is from Brian Fanzo. Brian inspires, motivates, and educates businesses on how to leverage emerging technologies and digital marketing to stand out from the noise and reach the millennials and Generation Z consumers. Brian is the founder of iSocialFans, which has helped launch digital and influencer strategies with the world's most iconic brands like Dell EMC, Adobe, IBM, UFC, Applebee's, and many more. This guy also wears a pager, which is shocking. I want to know how many pages you actually get. He moonlights as a drug dealer because who else has a pager? We all remember. No, he's a proud dad of 3 girls. Brian hosts 2 podcasts, has traveled to over 70 countries, and has spoken to many of the world's largest events. Please welcome Brian Fanzo. And his pager.
Thank you. All right, Fairfax. I'm excited to be here, and as a speaker, that's probably one of the worst things you could say, because what's the opposite of excited to be here, right? Like, I'm sad to be here, but I actually live in Manassas, Virginia, and very rarely do I get to speak locally. And so I've been traveling. I do about 60 events a year, and I just want to kind of set the bar for you guys. I've been here since this morning. I've been sitting in every session. You kind of see me popping around. This is an all-star event. The people and brands that you have up here, and I'm not just saying that. I go to these kind of events every single week around the world, and you don't get this much amazing value from brands giving you real hardcore advice. So can we get a round of applause for everybody here at this event? So what I'm going to talk to you about today is really just this idea of how do we take the knowledge that we learned over the last couple hours and implement it in our brands. And my background's actually fairly unique. I actually worked in cybersecurity for a small company many of you might have heard named BAE Systems. And I did that for 9 years. I did 3 trips to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan. I've been to 74 countries. And a lot of what I help brands do and what I work now in digital marketing and social media is how do we embrace change? How do we collaborate? How do we build community? I like to say those 3 C's. And today, so much of the value that you guys got over the entire day was about change, was about community, was about conversations. Even the stuff about social video, so much about social video was bringing it to where your audience is, not expecting them to go to where you're going. Now, Sarah was joking earlier, I do have a pager. The pager does not work, so there are no pages that go to it. But the reason I call myself a pager-wearing millennial is I was born in 1981, so I'm right on the cusp of being a millennial. I went to Radford University, graduated, yeah, there you go, a little Radford love. I graduated with a computer science degree. And so much of what we talk about now and the brands that I'm working with, many brands come to me and say, Brian, we want to reach those pesky millennials, or heaven forbid we want to reach the Generation Z. And for those that don't realize, Generation Z turns 18 this year. So yeah, watch out. Generation Z is here, and I have 3 daughters that are Generation Z, and they're already ready to spend. I was laughing during the Food Network discussion. My daughters make me buy Play-Doh so they can make what the Food Network people are making on TV in Play-Doh. So if you're a parent, it actually works really well because then you're not wasting food, and they still pitch it, and I get to chop one of them for my 3 daughters. I usually have to chop the oldest because she can take it. But a lot of what I like to work with brands is it's not really about the year someone was born. I don't care what year you were born, because this is one of the most interesting conversations that we have today. And if you guys saw my keynote last year, I talked a lot about the millennial mindset. And the thing I care about when we're looking at brands, when you're looking at social media today, I firmly believe we are living in the greatest time in history. The greatest time in history is right now, and everyone in this room, we have the power to make a difference in this world. I know we heard the National Geographic conversation this morning. I absolutely loved how they said if they wanted to change the world, they need to be a part of it. Their key to success in growing the largest brand on social media was empowering the people that people care about, which is the photogs. The photographers are who run the most successful Instagram channel. And so for many in this room, we might not have the sexiest brand. We might not have National Geographic photographers. We might not have the Food Network, the idea of food, because who doesn't love food? I mean, I take lots of pictures of my food. I am a millennial, for heaven's sake. But one of the things I want you to think about is how can we connect? One of the statistics I like to use in a lot of my keynotes is that 3 out of 4 buyers under the age of 40 will rather spend their money on an experience than a product. Let me say that again. 3 out of 4 under the age of 40 would rather spend their money on an experience than a product they desire. And so what I want you to ask yourself in your brand, your business, what you're doing today, are you marketing towards 3/4 of that community or to 1/4 of the community? Are you sharing experiences or are you just talking about your product? Because we heard a lot today about trust and accountability and authenticity. And here's the interesting thing, for many people and many brands that are struggling with social media, you're treating your social media like a billboard. And last time I checked, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm driving down the road and I look at a billboard, it doesn't give me a warm and fuzzy. I don't trust it. A billboard's not building community. And no matter what your brand is in this room, we are all in the business to do one thing online, and that is to build trust. We must build trust, we must scale trust, and we must tell our story. For many of us, and I love Judy's discussion about how she talked about crisis management and how it starts with culture. And the interesting thing about social media, if you look at success stories in social media, so much of it has very little to do with the product and a lot more to do about the people. We've always heard that great brands are great because they have great people. It's time for us to start empowering those great people to be the face of our social media. Does anyone in here, I'm going to ask this question, does anyone in here know of a brand that is perfect? Okay, brand is a hard one. Does anyone in here know of a person or a leader that is perfect? But interestingly enough, when we're creating our social media and we're doing everything in digital, what do we try to do? When they're that Facebook status or that tweet, we try to make it perfect. But this entire room just told me we don't believe anyone's perfect, any brand's perfect. What we need to start doing is talking with our community, not at our community. As I said, treating social media like a billboard gets you billboard results. One of the things Rachel we had talked about coming to this event to speak about was about creativity. And how do we be creative in this digital world that we're living in today? Well, I think part of the problem is when we're doing our campaigns and we're working on social media and marketing, for many of us in the room, we start with the platform or the campaign. But what I want to challenge you to do starting forward, and I love the examples, National Geographic, they literally teed me up with their insights today. Before you work on a project, before you start anything in social media, I want you to define what success looks like. I want everyone, when you are looking at your social media project, ask yourself, write it on your board, every single project, what does success look like? Interestingly enough, social media campaigns fail oftentimes not because they're not successful, but because we don't define success first. One of my favorite things to do, and this is something I recommend everyone doing, is when you're doing social media, you're building it for your brand or your business, when you get something good, when something good comes in, I have a phrase that I call screenshot awesomeness. Every time your campaign or your business, if you get an reply, you get a message, you get an email that says, I watched this, I saw this on Twitter, I screenshot that and put it into a folder. And so when your boss comes to you months down the road and says, hey, this was the social media campaign, this is how much time you had to work on it, what the hell have you done all this time? For many of us, we think about the 2 or 3 bad things that happened, or maybe that one thing that stood out. But when you're able to open a folder of every good thing that happened across your program, it does the ROI question for you. But it requires us to first ask what success looks like. And the problem with asking what success looks like first is you have to understand, what is your audience doing? Who is your customer? Now, I think many of this room, we've all heard of the movie Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. So there's a simple saying in the Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. Breaking news in 2018 and beyond, if you build it, nobody is coming. We don't care about your website launch, new Instagram account, who cares? You must bring your content where your audience is. Don't expect your audience to come to you. When you heard the example up here by Food Network said, we create content with the idea that we're going to put it on multiple platforms. Because for them, they understand what success looks like. For you, your success might be views, it might be clicks, it might be conversations. But the question is, are you defining that success first, or are you deciding it after you have your project? For many of us, it's hard to measure success and goals because we don't start off by defining success. As I said earlier, I firmly believe we are living in the greatest time in history. It doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your resume, your sexual orientation. We have the ability to tell stories that move people. For so many brands and businesses, they'll come to me and say, Brian, we want to work on a viral campaign, we want to do this, we want to do that. And then I ask them, what does success look like? And they'll give me some vanity metrics that are out there. And then I ask them simple questions like, if you could influence one decision maker every day, 365 decision makers in a year, would you consider that success? And they're like, hell yeah. If I can influence one person a day, that is success. Another piece of this that comes to me, and I used to hear this all the time, Snapchat goes in waves, but people would come to me and say, Brian, I need you to build me a Snapchat campaign. I'm like, okay, why? And we all know the answer. And no, it's not the inappropriate one that you're thinking. They say, we want to reach millennials and Gen Z. And funny enough, that's not the only people that are on those platforms. And as someone that labels themselves as a millennial, I think we don't need to worry about labeling people by the one thing that no human was able to actually control. Like, did anybody pick what generation they were born? Right? But what we need to start thinking about is, where is our audience? What are they doing? And how can we connect with them? Oftentimes, I get to work with some exciting brands, and one of the things we work on is we don't look to reach the actual end consumer. For example, this is one of my favorite stories, is I was working with a company, and they're a skinny jean company, and they were based out of the UK, and they said, Brian, I need to reach, my ideal customer is 35 to 45-year-old moms. And they said, that's who we want to reach on social media. And so they were working on different programs and different campaigns, and then they realized that there was something interesting, that the number one person that influences that demographic on buying jeans is 13 to 18-year-old females. Either the daughters, your cousins, or the females the girls that you see in the mall. When they see that logo or that brand, they go, okay, that's the trendy jean, that's what we need to buy. Interestingly enough, a brand that is targeting 35 to 45-year-old females, we built a Snapchat campaign for. Because I didn't care about reaching that 35 to 45-year-old. I cared about reaching who influences that 35 to 45-year-old. When you're looking at social media today, the consumer is smarter today than ever before. We have more access to information, more access to insights. How many people have gone into a brick and mortar store and did price comparison on their phone, right? It's kind of what we do. We go in there, and oftentimes we feel like we know even more than the person that works at that store. And so why are we treating customers like they're dumb? Why are we treating customers like they don't realize that that's an ad or a sales campaign? For many people in this room, you're probably blogging 5 days a week or 2 days a week. And I love the challenges because I don't think content is king. I think great content is king. And the question I'd like to ask you is, if you're blogging and creating content 5 days a week, why? We need to question the status quo, and social media and digital marketing has drastically changed over the last 9 years. For the last 9 years, we've been using social media to distance ourselves from our consumer. We decided, you know what? We don't want a phone call. We don't want our employees getting bothered. We'll have them fill out an online form. And then an online form was too much information for us to handle. So then we said, we're just going to have them sign up for some ridiculous email newsletter that's going to spam their email box with stuff they don't even care about or don't even want, but that's going to count as a lead. Today's consumer is smart. Today's consumer sees right through that. They know what an ad is. They know what retargeting is. For the most part, we did see the people questioning Mark Zuckerberg. They didn't really understand what ads were on Facebook and retargeting and why it was free. But besides our friends that are right around the corner that were asking those questions, we have to remember that today's consumer is smart. So it's about empowering. The reason influencer marketing is a game changer right now, and if you aren't doing influencer marketing, you should be, because every brand has influencers. A customer that tells one friend to buy your product is an influencer. And the reason that works is, guess what? Nobody trusts a brand or a logo. Nobody. I don't care how long you've been in business. You tell me you've been in business 140 years, I'm like, well, you're stuck in your ways. I don't want to work with you. Truth. But we don't trust a brand or a logo. We trust the people that work at the company. We trust people that look like us, that act like us. I have to ask, does anyone believe that LeBron James drives a Kia? Or Matthew McConaughey drives a Lincoln? If I'm buying a car as a dad of 3 girls, am I going to trust Matthew McConaughey's recommendation on what car to buy? But you know what I am going to do? I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to watch somebody that's test driven 200 cars and knows what it's like to have Cheerios in the back seat or an old yogurt drink that my daughters, for some reason, always leave in the back seat. That person, when they give me advice to buy a car, I listen to that person. Why? And this is one of the chapters in my upcoming book. The future of marketing is relatability. Our ability to relate with our community and our audience is how someone buys. We've always heard the old adage, people buy from people they like. I'm going to tell you from right now and beyond, people also buy from people they can relate to. And how do you become relatable? You move from focusing on your logo and your brand to empowering people that look like us, that act like us, that understand your pain points. I don't care how big your brand is, how small your brand is. I look at live video, things like Facebook Live and Periscope, as the greatest disruptor to marketing today. The reason that is because we realized all of a sudden we would much rather watch someone live than watch something that was canned and made up. Because I think we all know, and I think this was also a staple, I think Judy hit this home as well, right now, we can't trust what's online. It's bad news and fake news. But we as marketers, we in the social media space, have the ability to change that. We have the ability to interview our customers. We have the ability to work with our influencers. We have the ability to empower our employees to be the face of their company. One of my favorite examples of this, if you guys are familiar with Cisco. Cisco is an enterprise networking software company, and they have a project that they call We Are Cisco. And I'm actually very blessed to be able to work with them on a couple projects. I'm actually speaking in Atlanta next week with Carmen. But We Are Cisco gives a different employee access to their Instagram account and lets the employee tell their story on Instagram every single day. Now, you might be wondering, oh my goodness, it's kind of crazy. Well, I ask you, do you trust your employees? And for all of them that said that was crazy, my guess is no. And you have a bigger problem than marketing if you can't trust your employees to take over your accounts. And you can't start with influencer marketing if you're not currently working in that space. But one of the things that We Are Cisco does that's amazing is that they tell the story of the employee. They tell the story of what they do in their business. And guess what? People want to work for their company. Because most traditional websites, when you go to your careers page, there is a video that plays that tells the story of the company. And then underneath it, in very small print, says, people in this video do not work at the company. So when you're getting someone to work at your company, you say, trust me, we trust our employees. For Cisco, they don't have to say anything. They just say, look what we do with our employees. Every business, I don't care if you're a small business, a government business, healthcare, finance, we can empower our employees. And if right now you're thinking to yourself, and I know this is for many people, they will say, Brian, this is great, but I work in blah, or I'm in this industry, or this is a regulated space. Last year on this stage for this event, the Defense Intel came up here and explained how they do some amazing things with Facebook Live, how they take people backstages with Instagram. If Defense Intel can bring live video and fun storytelling to their business, what's your excuse? I had a TSSCI. I understand what regulations, but guess what we do when we look at these things? We use them as a crutch. Oh, we can't do that because we're regulated. We can't do that because we're in this, I call, let's challenge that. Ask why we're not doing this. And then the other piece of this, and I think this was something that was a staple throughout this event, was you have to kind of break down things and say, if everyone is zigging, why not zag? If everyone in your industry is doing this, why not do something different? Because there's one thing I can guarantee right now is that we are really tired of really bad content. I love live video. I love Facebook Live. I think Facebook Live is amazing because anyone can go live. I think most of the Facebook Live video that we see in our feed today sucks because anyone can go live. Right? Like, I mean, we don't need some of these people going. But the idea is, how do we put ourselves out there? How do we tell our story? And I already said, you can't expect people to come to you. You have to bring your content to them. That requires listening. That requires being open to what is out there. And it requires you to define what success is before you start a project. I think experience marketing and getting out there and being relatable is how we change the game. Start telling the stories of your employees. Start interviewing your customers and clients. Start collaborating with other businesses. We heard that National Geographic collaborated with Nike. We heard Target collaborate with the Food Network. I always say that the future of innovation will be fueled by collaboration. The people on the stage already proved it. If you want to stand out, if you want to grow your social networks, if you want to extend your message, collaborate with others that have a network. YouTube stars have been doing this since day one. You're a big YouTube star, you collaborate with another YouTube star, you get on the same channel, you share the content out, and guess what? Both of your networks come together, people follow each other. That is this network. So if we look at the underlying principle here, is we must embrace change. We must understand the importance of being real and building trust online. Second thing is we have to understand the power of community. People don't trust your brand or your logo. They trust those people that look like us. I mean, how many people here, I travel a lot. I've been to 74 countries. I don't know if you guys realize this, but every country and every city I go to has the world's greatest pizza. I was in Scotland in May, and I came out of my hotel, and there was literally a sign on the street. Scotland even has the world's greatest pizza. Because for us as marketers, we all of a sudden realize you throw world's greatest in front of it, and sure, someone's going to buy into it. That is why people don't trust brands or logos. We trust people. When you're going to a new city, do you go to a website to see what the greatest pizza is in the location? Or do you post on Facebook and ask your friends, hey, I'm traveling here. What would you recommend me to eat? That is the connection to community. Community is the future of business. We must start talking with our community, not talking at them. We must start empowering our community to help tell our story, not do anything different. Now, I have two rules, and some of this might sound a little bit, hey, Brian, this is really great, but I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years, and now it's starting to come true. The brands on stage have made that a point. But there's two things that you have to realize, and the first one is perfection is a fairy tale. If you are trying to be perfect, it is impossible. The second one is control is an illusion. You can control yourself. You can attempt to control the narrative, as Judy said. But in this world we're in right now, oftentimes things go viral or things start trending without us even realizing what's going on. You must first focus on telling the story, not trying to be perfect. You must start telling, how do I put myself out there, not trying to control what people are saying to you. In today's day and age, it's not about talking at, it's about talking with. Now, I've given you a lot of information. Hopefully some of these insights are just compounding on what you've learned today. But I'm going to give you one other thing. And for many people, they're like, okay, Brian, I believe you. You're kind of screaming at me. You talk really fast. It's the end of the day. Lunch is coming up. Like, okay, I get it. But here's what I want you guys to think about. If you are unsure about what kind of content to create, where you should start telling your story, how your brand can do all of these amazing things, I have one word for you: access. Today's consumers are craving access to what your business does, who you are, and why you do what you do. For every business that comes to me and says, Brian, I want to compete with Amazon, I'm like, well, that's really hard, because I click one button in Manassas and my stuff's here the next morning. Like, it's kind of nice. But how do you get someone to get out of their house, not click that button, and go into your brick and mortar store? You tell your story. You let them know that you care. One of my favorite customers and clients is in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they run a small boutique clothing company. And every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., they put 3 different articles of clothing on their Facebook Live, and they let their community vote on what should be on sale for the weekend. Does Amazon let you vote on what's for sale? Can you even find Amazon's customer service number? I mean, it's like near impossible. It's like, where's Waldo? But what that brand has done is they've now known that their customers are like, wait, that brand cares about me. They want my opinion. And many people come in the store not even to buy what was on sale, but to say, I care that you care about my opinion. I'm going to purchase from you. It's access. Give people access to why you do what you do, how you do what you do, and where things are going. Last but not least, in the world we're living in right now, and I get to do these digital marketing, social media events all the time, there is a ton of information you guys have got today. You've been inundated with information and insights, got some great use cases, and here's the thing that I've struggled with for many years in social media, is that I will come to this, works out perfect. I spoke at this event last year, and there'll be many people that will come up to me and say, Brian, you inspired me. Brian, I wrote down all these notes for this great project, and here's the problem. They come back a year later, like today, and they say, Brian, thanks so much for all that great information. You really inspired us. We put it on our board, and then we decided we were going to move it to the fall. And then we said, you know what, we're going to do it in the spring. And then in the spring, it was, finances were a little bit different. We couldn't get our marketing budgets. So then we decided we're going to do it in the fall. And then really what we just decided is we're going to come back here and listen to you talk about the same old crap and still do nothing. Every business, every brand can consume information, can take down the notes. The challenge I have for you guys in this room, especially in this region, this is an amazing event, is pick one thing on your list and do it. Pick one thing and push it out there. Because for many of us, we're going to get overwhelmed. We're going to go back and tell our boss all this exciting stuff. and then nothing happens. The key to that change, and I'm going to give you this example, is that you don't tell your boss what to do, you explain why we should do something. It starts with what I said at the very beginning of this. You need to define what success looks like. If you have a list of things on your piece of paper right now that you want to do, right now next to it saying, what is success of this project? If we launch an Instagram channel, what does success look like? If we do a weekly Facebook Live show, what does success look like? I'm launching a brand new podcast November 5th, and I couldn't be more excited. And my success metrics are mapped out about 11 pages long with my co-host Amy. It is about mapping success. It's about understanding your community. It's about embracing change, and it's ultimately about how do we come together and tell our stories. Everyone in this room can agree with one thing. The world needs more empathy. The thing about empathy is that we can't be empathetic for someone until that person tells their story. For everyone in this room, you have the power to tell your brand story, your employee story, your founder of your startup story. The question is, will you? Stop consuming information, stop worrying about all of these other things, and press the damn button. My book comes out in the spring. It's called Press the Damn Button. Thank you guys very much. Brian Fanzo.